Translation by Srila Prabhupada. And purport. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The principles of religion by which one can actually understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Bhagavad Dharma. In this narration, therefore, which deals with these principles, actual transcendence itself is properly described. Please repeat. The principles of religion by which one can actually understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Bhagavad Dharma. In this narration, therefore, which deals with these principles, actual transcendence is properly described. Purport. I'm 43 now. Can't see. Right. Through the principles of religion, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman. Sorry, let me do that again. Through the principles of religion, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman, the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, and Paramatma, the localized aspect of the Lord. When one is well conversant with all these principles, he becomes a devotee and performs Bhagavad Dharma. Prahlad Maharaj, the spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession, advised that Bhagavad Dharma be instructed to students from the very beginning of their education. Kumara acharit prajna dharmam bhagavatanam iha. To understand the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the real purpose of education. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. One must simply hear about and describe Lord Vishnu and his various incarnations. This narration concerning Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev therefore has properly described spiritual transcendental subjects. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshusumritam Jena Tasmai Shri Guru Ve Namaha. So this verse here is describing, there's a couple of points Srila Prabhupada is making, the principles of religion. By following the principles of religion, one actually comes to the point of Bhagavad Dharma. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain what Bhagavad Dharma is. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. And then Prabhupada explains how we should actually transform this Bhagavad Dharma into the hearts of our young, the group, the children within the society. So why we need to do this and how we need to do it, I'm just going to maybe speak a little bit about it. I'm not an expert on Gurukul. There's devotees here that are, but I have a couple of children, so I can speak to my limited realization. So, first of all, Srila Prabhupada explains that when one follows the principles of religion properly, then you can understand about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here Srila Prabhupada explaining about the different features or different aspects of the Supreme Lord. So the principles of religion are laid down by Krishna in the Vedic literature. But of course, everyone can follow the principles of religion. Even the non-devotees, even the karmis follow principles of religion. But their aim isn't Krishna. Their aim is material sense gratification. But the principle of religion Srila Prabhupada is specifically talking about here is that principle of religion which takes you to the point of Bhagavad Dharma, which Bhagavad Dharma is that activity which re-establishes our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that sex life, according to religious principles, he is non-different too. But that doesn't mean that if one is engaging in sex life according to religious principles, he is transcendental. Most likely, if you are transcendental, then you wouldn't really want to be engaging in an activity anyway. But that principle actually takes us, by following those principles, one actually comes to the point of understanding about Krishna, which Prabhupada explains here further, which those points are hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. There are 9 processes. Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, Iti Pumsha, Pita Vishnu. The devotees serving, he's offering those 9 processes to Krishna. And actually, Srila Prabhupada also translates Pumsha as living entities. In other words, Krishna consciousness is available to every living entity in the material world, not just to human beings. So first of all, we need to develop Krishna consciousness by following the principles of Bhagavad Dharma. It's very important. Because if we don't follow principles properly ourselves, then what are we going to be giving to our children? When Prahlad Maharaj was preaching to his school friends, which is in the earlier chapters, specifically chapter 7th canto, chapter 6, it's described that Prahlad Maharaj was very compassionate towards his friends. He had feelings towards them, genuine devotional feelings that devotees, or one that is generally following the process of Krishna consciousness, is going to develop these genuine feelings of a Vaishnava and qualities. Compassion is a very important quality, especially if you're a preacher. And here we're talking about educating young children, and educating and preaching is more or less the same thing. So Prahlad Maharaj was very compassionate, and even though he knew that his teachers, what was his name again? I forgot. Sundaramaka. Sundaramaka, even though his teachers were presenting a complete nonsense to the children, materialism, when he was preaching to them, he was smiling because he had compassion, genuine compassion for them. So Krishna consciousness is actually a very personal process, which is a complete opposite to the material world, which is impersonal. Everything in the spiritual world is personal. Everything is touched. Everything is transcendental, spiritual, Krishna conscious. And in the material world, everything is impersonal. Krishna explains that the material body is like a yantra rudani maya. It is like a machine, the material body. So this material energy that we are trying to relate to is like a huge machine, an impersonal machine. And we're trying to get some sense enjoyment from this impersonal machine. We're trying to enjoy our senses through it. And that is kind of like modern day education. They completely lost every idea of being the eternal servants of Krishna, which is completely personal, and they're just presenting a completely impersonal education to children, which is materialism, how one can just enjoy our senses through this impersonal energy. And this is also an energy of Krishna, it's an impersonal aspect of the Lord. So, I forgot, my mind's gone again. So we're trying to enjoy through this mature energy. So through enjoying this mature energy, we become frustrated. Frustration. This is the result of impersonalism in the heart. Frustration. Because by nature, the living entity is completely personal. We want a personal relationship. Yeah. Just like I was on the phone the other day to BT. And these days, when you're phoning these big companies, you can't speak to a person. You get put through to a machine. And it says, you have 5 options. Press number 1 if you want to speak about accounts. Press number 2 for this. And then you press number 1 and then it takes you through another 6 options. And, you're on the phone for about 20, 30 minutes. And because it's an 0870 number, you're spending a lot of money on this phone call, and it's making you more and more frustrated to the point where, you just want to strangle someone. Is there an option where I can press and I can strangle someone, So, this is the result of dealing with machines. That's just an example. And then, of course, you finally get put through to an operator who's a person, and you feel a little bit of relief, so you can vent your frustration out on that person. But of course, we're devotees, so we chant Hare Krishna, and we control our frustration, which I'll explain about later. But at the moment, we're talking about being frustrated through dealing with the impersonal energy of the Supreme Lord. I've been on the phone for 20 minutes, and then they say, okay, don't worry, we can deal with your problem. Whether they deal with it or not, that's another thing, but because we're dealing with a person, then we're a little bit more appeased. So Krishna, he's the supreme operator of this huge material world, which is like a machine. And because we can't see Krishna face to face, he sends down his representative, the pure devotee. And just like Dharani Thai Prabhu was saying yesterday in class, the spiritual master is a living person. You can't jump over the head of the spiritual master. In other words, you can't just go straight to Krishna or, through the Parampara. We need this personal relationship. We need to be able to speak to this person. And then the spiritual master, by engaging in some service, he becomes pleased with us. And he imparts transcendental knowledge. So, if we don't develop this personal idea of Krishna consciousness, or in other words, by following the principles properly, Bhagavad Dharma, then we're not going to develop this. And what we're going to develop instead is frustration. We're going to be frustrated with ourselves, with everything around us. And this is the way society is at the moment. It's a complete and utter frustration. People are putting their hair out at the moment, the way the economy is. And even though, Christmas is coming up, people are miserable, right? Out on the street. The only people excited at Christmas time are the children. But the adults are not interested. They're just forced to buy presents for people they're not particularly liking, Uncle John they haven't spoken to for a year. You've got to buy him a present, Trying to enjoy a little. It's total frustration. So then by coming to the point of spiritual understanding, one actually, by following the principles, one comes to Bhagavad Dharma, which is devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Those activities which actually take us off of the mental platform and really re-establish our relationship with Krishna. It is a process of purifying the heart. Yeah? The heart has to be purified through Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting about Krishna. Shimvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyanta Stoi Bhadrani Vitanoti Shritsatam. By hearing and chanting, and Krishna, he's in the heart of the devotee, he imparts transcendental knowledge to the devotee. or cleanses the heart, he cleanses the heart of these material desires, takes them away. So we have to develop this urge for hearing and chanting about Krishna. And then slowly all this frustration that we have will slowly go away. Connecting to the spiritual energy of the Lord. So Prabhupada is talking a little about imparting, once we actually receive this Bhagavad Dharma, imparting it, in other words, giving it to someone else, and he's specifically talking about giving it to young children, a very tender age. Prabhupada explains here, a tender age. It's usually 5 years old. Isn't it 5 years old the child goes into Gurukul? Why? Because at that age, children are less materially affected. And Prabhupada explains that. Less materially affected than the parents. Because you still have a certain amount of purity at that age. And a child is like a sponge. Whatever you give them, whatever you say, they repeat it. Any of us who got children, we have experience of this, right? So you've got to be careful what you're saying. You say something not nice, they'll repeat it to someone else. I've had that experience. My little one, David, he's like that, He's like a sponge, and anything goes in, he just... Things you said like a year ago. So the point is, what are we actually giving them? If we're not following ourselves the principles of Bhagavad Dharma, then what are we giving our children? Prabhupada's quoting a verse here, which is... Kumara Acharit Prajna Dharmam Bhagavatanam Miha. That's a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada's talking about traditional Gurukula here. And actually in ISKCON, this kind of Gurukul very rarely exists now. I think the only place is India, probably, right? In Mayapur. Although we tried to, in the early days of ISKCON, we tried to make a go of it, but it didn't work. You can see there was a lot of problems. And here it is written in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, in this verse, is the reason why those problems were there. Because those who were trying to implement, who were trying to teach, weren't actually following Bhagavad Dharma themselves. And just like Prahlad Maharaj, when he was speaking to his school friends, it was actually generally coming from his heart. In other words, it wasn't an academic process. The devotees are very much into academia these days, which is a good thing. It has its place in society, has its place in Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, we mustn't forget the ABCs, or the process by which we can actually attain Krishna, purifying our heart. So in the early days, it didn't work out because the devotees were not generally, from the bottom of their hearts, giving Krishna to the children. In other words, you can't just put a Bhagavad Gita in someone's face and have a stick in your hand and say, read that. It may work up to a certain point, but eventually the person is going to rebel. So this is also a good lesson for preachers as well in Krishna consciousness. Because this is a society for preaching. Prabhupada said that it is a responsibility for the members of this society to preach Krishna consciousness to others. So the traditional Gurukul isn't here so much. So then how do we go about it? Because traditional Gurukul was that the child would be completely under the authority of the spiritual master. And the spiritual master, the brahmachari, he doesn't do anything without the spiritual master's permission. They go out begging, and then they bring whatever they beg, they bring it back, and they offer that to the spiritual master. That's the traditional Gurukul. But yeah, so but in ISKCON we have a different type. We usually become brahmacharis about late teens, early 20s. Yeah. So it's better late than never, is the saying. All right. We can all say that, and I can say personally for myself that my brahmachari life was one of the best times of my life, because you're completely absorbed in Krishna's service. You're going out preaching, and the main activity, or one of the most important activities, is book distribution. We preach, distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. So we're not only developing this Bhagavatam ourselves, we're giving it to others. So that's the brahmachari. Actually, brahmachari life means that if one's a good brahmachari, then he may get married. And it'd be easier for him to give up grahastha life. That's the point of brahmachari. That's the whole point of being a brahmachari, so you can give up grahastha life. Because grahastha life is like a, I can say this because I'm not a brahmachari. But actually, what is it? What's that verse? Well, it's not a verse, it's a few words. Kumbha, Undercoop, yeah. Yeah, Griham Undercoop. So, grahastha life is like that. The whole point of Bhakti Yoga is to develop a distaste for material life, Prabhupada said. So if one stays within grahastha ashram, grahastha life basically is a license for one to enjoy material sense gratification by following certain principles. Otherwise, as Prabhupada said, there's no reason to become a grahastha. But unless one gives up unless you give up your attachments at the time of death, then it means you have to come back to this material world again. So it is very important at the early stage to be a brahmachari. Although I know it isn't so emphasized as much as it was these days. But I can personally say what I learned being in the ashram is invaluable later on in life, And this is what Prabhupada is saying here. We have to give it to our children at a tender age of 5. That's the best way to do it. That's your traditional way. But then ISKCON is 21st century, we're doing according to time and circumstance, Someone maybe in their 30s and 40s, but they can still be a brahmachari. Whatever few years you're in the ashram for is to your benefit in the rest of your life. And obviously brahmachari, also we talk about brahmacharinis as well. I don't want to be sexist. Yeah. It's the same for women as well, brahmacharini ashram. I remember when I was in brahmachari, most of the time we just spent travelling Sankirtan. There's not one town in this country that we haven't been to. And when I meet people in the street now, and they say, I say, well, where are you from? They say, I'm from this town. I say, I've been there. They're shocked. I say, no one goes to this town. So we just went travelling, and you can travel around the world as a brahmachari as well. There's an ISKCON centre in every country, more or less, on this planet, which you can visit. It's an amazing life. And those that are not so intelligent end up getting married. Sorry. You don't want to sound negative. But it's... I'm just preaching. I'm not... anyway, I'm just preaching according to the philosophy, sorry. But that's what Prabhupada says. But of course there are benefits in all ashrams. But that person that's been a brahmachari, brahmacharini, then they get the best benefit once they become a grahastha. And then later on, it's very easy for them to give up this attachment to your wife, to your children, to your house, your bank balance, to your car, These are all material attachments, and if you have even one attachment at the time of death, then it means you have to come back. And our whole process of Krishna consciousness is to detach ourselves from these material things. So whole of Krishna consciousness is a purifying process of the heart. Yeah? So when you have this and you're giving it to someone else, with genuine feeling, I think Donata was mentioning yesterday, with genuine feeling, then that person is more likely to be receptive or take it, rather than having a stick in your hand and, there's the book, read it, learn some verses like a parrot. But, Prahlad Maharaj was genuine. He was a genuine person. And those people he was preaching to were his friends. So naturally, he's going to have some feeling for them, some compassion. So this is the way we should also give to our children. You can't force it. You can't force Krishna consciousness. It's very difficult these days with materialism. Kids are into so many nonsense things, Xbox, computer games, TV. I know. So these things are contaminating the mind, and they're leaving a lasting impression on the heart and the mind of that child. Therefore, our task is actually very difficult these days. It was a lot easier in bygone ages. The Gurukul process is very difficult now. I can personally say by my own experience, Just to get the kids up to come to the temple is very difficult. I have to bribe them. They were here. David was here recently, and he didn't want to chant. He doesn't like chanting. His mind is very active, and he's just running around. I said, okay, well, every round you chant, I'll give you 20 pence. He came back and said, Dad, I've chanted 10 rounds. I said, no, you haven't. But a little bribery helps, Even if you have to bribe him. But he's clever, you see. And I took him to Rath Yatra in Brighton, and I was doing some books. And David said, can we do some books? But we want to keep the profit. So I said, okay. But I did what? I did about 30 books between them. And then at the end I was at the Lego shop. But it made them excited about distributing books. It's not a pure motivation, but it made them excited. And then every Rath Yatra, Dad, we want to go. We want to go. So, but obviously I had to cover the cost of the books. So even a little bribery helps, whatever little you can do. Because these days it's very difficult. Kids are constantly bombarded by so many impressions. Srila Prabhupada said, modern schools are like slaughterhouses. Why? Because they are missing the main point, and that is the soul. That personal relationship. And teachers outside, they're very impersonal with the children. There's about 30 kids in the class and not interested. If a child has a little problem, they immediately brush them off somewhere else. A specialist teacher comes in and teaches that child. It's very difficult. So that once we have developed that genuine Krishna consciousness within our hearts, we want to give it to others. It's a natural result. Just like if you have a cure for AIDS or something, you don't want to keep it to yourself. Although I'm sure a lot of these big companies do, so they can make loads of money with the medicine. But naturally, you want to give it out. This is the cure for everything. It's the cure for madness, insanity, frustration, everything. You only need to follow the process properly. So that special time of year has come around. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Christmas. Yeah. I was hoping you would say Prabhupada Marathon. But yeah, Christmas as well. Dave was asking me, how many days till Christmas, Dad? 4 weeks. How many days till Christmas, Dad? It's still 4 weeks. So it's only the children that are excited. The parents, the grown-ups are not. They're frustrated. But the devotees are very clever. We actually use that frustration of theirs, that unsavory situation they're in, and we actually dovetail it. And they're spending so much. They're just spending money on so much useless things. So the devotees are intelligent. Then okay, this is a good time to distribute Prabhupada's books. I was out one marathon, last marathon in Basildon, and just an example about people just wanting to buy it. They don't even know what they're buying. They don't care what it is. They just buy it. I was distributing books, and 2 women came up to me. They said, "What's that?" I said, "It's a book about yoga." She said, "I have 2." She said, and then she turned around to the friend. She said, "Yeah, you'd join her like that, wouldn't he? He's into that." She said, "Oh, she's taking. I'll take 2 as well." Now I'm not exaggerating. This is true. And then I had another woman. She came because she saw that they were buying something. Then she came and she said, "I'll have one." I said, "Don't you?" She said, "What's it about?" I said, "Meditation." She said, "Don't, I'll have it." And that was amazing. So this is a perfect time to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. And we can use that madness they have and dovetail it in Krishna service somehow. How many people are going to get a book as a present? Amazing. Huh? Because the devotees we generally have this feeling of we want to actually help society. And the only way to help society is by giving them Krishna consciousness. And one of the most direct ways of giving Krishna consciousness is through Prabhupada's books. It's very easy. You just get a pile of books and just go where there's some people. That's all. And if you're sincere, then something will happen. In so many ways, it's door to door. If you don't like the street so much, the street's intense. The hardest thing about being on the street is trying to stop someone. I'll tell you a funny story. I was on the street recently. It was in Portsmouth. And I was having one of those really tough days. Really tough days. When no one wants to stop. So I was praying to Krishna. What's going on, Krishna? I'm here. At least get someone to stop. And then from a distance, I could see this woman in one of those electric chairs, And she was having mechanical problems. It was like, it was stopping. And then she came and she stopped just right in front of me. Right in front of me. She said, "The battery's gone." I said, "Really? There's one for you." And she took a book. Krishna he was having a bit of a laugh with me, I think. But anyway, then she was stuck there, and I was thinking, this is my spot. And she's stuck here, and I can't. So I thought, okay, this is a good time to take some lunch, chant my Gayatri, Hopefully by the time I get back, she'll be gone, So I took about half an hour off. I came back, and she was still there. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do much today. So I just stood. She was probably waiting for the RAC version of the wheelchair or something. They're probably a lot slower. 4 hours. So I thought, okay, I'll just talk to her. And she turned out to be a really nice person, actually. Maybe the whole point of me having a tough time was to meet this woman. Actually, when I came back, she was sitting there reading the book. So I just stood. I thought, okay, I'm not going to do anything today. I just sit here and talk to this woman. She's very nice. Anyway, that's a funny story I thought I would mention. So everyone, that feeling of wanting to give Prabhupada's books is there. It's in the air, Brahmacharya is getting ready to travel, and Sutapa's going, they're all going out, I'm feeling that as well, although I can't do as much as I used to. But it's nice, you want to give Krishna to others. And whatever little you can do will be to our eternal benefit. Even if you just go out and distribute a couple of small books. Sometimes I just stop over at services and just do 2 hours, because you can only park there for 2 hours at a time. If I'm driving from one place to another, I'll just do a couple of hours. And you can meet some really amazing people in those 2 hours. So this is the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. You're not only feeling it yourself, then you're ready to give it to others. You're giving it to your children in a loving way, and you're giving it to the people outside. And that's genuine Krishna consciousness. That is a genuine Sankirtan devotee, actually. Someone who just wants to give Krishna. And he's not interested in results, he's not interested in whatever comes. My main thing is I'm out here, I'm just doing my duty of giving Krishna to others. Because I'm feeling something myself, that I want to give it. If you're not feeling anything, then the desire to give is not going to be there. So by Shravan Kirtana Vishnu Smaranam, those activities are going to help us feel close to Krishna. Okay, I'll stop there. Any questions or comments?